The project that I'll be talking about today is our Keeping Black Survivors Alive project. We started this project in 2021 out of a report that we published called Keeping Black Women Alive, responding to intimate partner high risk in Black communities. And what we shared in that report, this was from data and different lived experiences from Black women, we found that the interventions that are currently in place for Black communities don't really work well for Black communities. This report is published, and so I hope that you can check it out after this presentation. From this report, we asked community to consider 5 recommendations, so 5 action items. 1, we asked for shifting away from an over-reliance on law enforcement. We ask that folks challenge and undo the stereotypes that they hold. And we ask that there is funding for culturally specific models and best practices. From that report, we formed a cohort. The cohort is comprised of 5 Black women-led organizations in Massachusetts: the Center for Hope and Healing in Lowell, Mass., Brookview House in Roxbury, Mass., Transgender Emergency Fund in Boston, Mass., Love Life Now Foundation in Brockton, and the YWCA of Central Mass, which is located in Worcester. And so from that cohort, we have about 12 individuals, and we meet several times monthly. We are in our 3rd year of the project, and our North Star is to create a multimedia toolkit of best practices, training tools, and a live database of resources for providing better services for Black survivors. And so in designing this, we said to ourselves, where do we need to start? And it felt very obvious from the start that we needed to center the voices of Black survivors. We started by centering the voices of Black women, because Black women, Black trans women, are the most marginalized of the communities that we serve. And so we feel that if we focus on the most marginalized, that there will be a ripple effect in enhanced services for other marginalized communities. At Mass Women of Color Network, we strive to meet the needs of our communities with an inviting invitation to co-design. This is really similar to Full Frame's approach of not centering community engagement, but centering community, which I'll talk about in a moment. But also at the start, when we said we want to center Black survivors, we also felt the need to come up with guiding principles for our project. Our guiding principles for the Keeping Black Survivors Alive project are: 1, we want to prioritize strategies that are grounded in survivor experiences. 2, develop frameworks that break down the distinctions between service providers and survivors. 3, implement approaches that address both systemic and individual harms. And in our approach of an inviting invitation, we do so by centering our values. We design with community, not for. And this approach is very similar to that of the Full Frame Initiative. We would like to expand on that in the next few minutes. So oftentimes as service providers, I feel that we can get caught up in asking ourselves, what needs to change? What are the problems we're seeing in communities? Where are the gaps? Where are the things that we need to see shift and change? And we may oftentimes have great intentions, but not always go about the process correctly, either by providing theoretical solutions, seeking internal solutions based on evaluations from different programs and saying, oh, the evaluations state that we should shift in these ways. Let's shift in these ways. While that may be part of it, it's not the full way forward, in our opinion. And so as the Full Frame Initiative stated about community engagement and why it's not so effective, community engagement tools such as surveys, listening sessions, focus groups, they only scratch the surface. and they extract data and can oftentimes further tokenize and harm the communities we serve. So we at Mass Women of Color Network, we focus on authentic connections, imparting history and knowledge, storytelling, lifting as we climb, power sharing, community building, community care, fostering, encouraging thriving, radical self-preservation, and collective liberation. For the sake of this presentation and for the sake of centering the voices of community, I've highlighted the values in orange that I feel we should focus on the most. So let's start with power sharing. Power sharing means that I know I have self-awareness about myself. Our team, we have self-awareness. For example, I self-identify as a Black woman. I also self-identify as a survivor of sexual and domestic violence. Many others on my team identify similarly, but we still wanted to focus on the voices of those we serve. While our lived experiences may be very similar, we don't know all of how we can put this puzzle together and move forward in the way that really enhances the services and meets the needs of our communities. So we said, even though we hold these identities, we still want to invite community. And when we invite community, we want to make sure that that invitation is intentional. When folks see an invitation for an interview or a listening session or any of the other tools, we want to show them who we are and let them know the point of the project. And not just the point, but then when they come to any of these activities, one of the first questions we share is, what would you like to see happen? Let me pause and go back a little bit. So with the Keeping Black Survivors Alive project and our North Star of the multimedia toolkit, we stated that we wanted to hear from Black survivors. And in that, we said, how can we invite people in a way that feels inclusive, in a way that feels co-created, and allow people to feel like this is for them. We are designing with them. One of the things that we do is we in our flyers, we share what the objective is. We share if there's any compensation that will be attached. We share what the goal is, right? And that's similar to the objectives. One moment. From the start of the project throughout the entire process, we want folks to feel like they are in it with us, that we are not the service providers holding power over them, but that we are inviting them into a co-creation, into a co-process that will bring forth a result that really uplifts their voice. We invite them to tell their story. So in telling their story, we take time, right? With the authenticity that we bring, we come to the space saying that, yes, we are service providers, but we acknowledge the power difference, and we say, how can we make that not feel so present in this moment? So yes, they come and we allow them to lead. We share the questions ahead of time and say, these are the questions we would like to ask you. Which of these questions feel okay for you to answer? If you don't want to answer all of them, we understand, right? And we also share that what will happen with the information, what information will be confidential, and what information do we hope to pull the themes from and use to create this multimedia toolkit. Also, lifting as we climb. As we learn things throughout the process and we learn from each other, we share those things in a way of cross-training. So, for example, in one of our interviews, a woman of color was sharing her experience for the very first time. And as she was sharing, it was a special and sacred moment because she was trusting us with such delicate information. And so in that moment, I shared with her that I'm going to stop taking notes, right? And I'm going to allow her to take over the session and lead in a way that felt good for her. And she said, yep, you know, you taking notes is not distracting to me in any way. I actually feel supported by you taking notes because I know that you are capturing what it is that I would like community and others to know. And as we were doing that, I also encouraged ways that she could take care of herself. So I didn't just say, oh, please take care of yourself. We can do deep breathing, or there's a hotline that you can call. But in the moment, we went slow. Slow and steady wins the race. And so is how we feel. And so we really slowed it down and allowed her way more than the time that we had planned. And that's what we mean when we say we share power and we are authentic, right? Because oftentimes we say, oh, we have an hour planned, right? And we're sometimes watching our clocks as the hour is going. And that has impact on those that we are interacting with. And so we said, take the time that you need. And she cried, and I consoled her. And it was a really powerful experience. Also, building community. We feel that when we invite survivors to show up and when they come to the space that is inviting, that we can build relationships, and those relationships are what it takes for us to heal through many of the things that we are working on. And collective liberation. So as I stated before, I self-identify as a survivor and many others on my team. And we share with survivors that, yes, we want them to share this really delicate parts of themselves, and this is going to inform the toolkit. But we are also sharing as leaders at different parts of the project. And so we are also willing to be vulnerable in achieving the North Star.